Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. Post positions have been drawn for the 151st Belmont Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. 10 set to go, a mile and a half. It's the test of the champion. $1.5 million is the purse. It is carded as race number 11 at Belmont on Saturday with an approximate post time of 6:48. And Matt, the two morning line favorites drew outside. The 10 Tacitus is the 9-5 morning line choice on David Aragona's line. The 9 War of Will, the Preakness winner, the 2-1 second choice. I think we should start talking about post positions in a mile and a half and how we probably shouldn't get too overboard. It's a long distance race. These horses have plenty of time to sort themselves out.
You know, of the three Triple Crown races and the Preakness to a lesser extent, we all know the importance of the post draw for the Derby. You draw inside, draw outside, whatever the case may be. There's going to be that scrum going down the stretch the first time. The Preakness generally going to be a smaller field, generally going to be some horses that are a little bit overmatched compared to the horses exiting the Derby. This race here, the Belmont Stakes, I don't think the post position draw, frankly, really makes much of a difference at all. Maybe it depends on who's going to be drawn nearest as far as speed is concerned and those sort of things. But I just look at this and say, you know what? If you lose this race, it won't be because of the post position.
And contrary to popular belief, this is not a late runner's race. Horses with speed and tactical speed tend to excel despite the mile and a half distance. I mean, how many times have we been fooled by late ralliers in the Derby going a mile and a quarter? They stretch out to mile and a half. On paper, it looks like they'll really appreciate the distance, and they come up a little bit short. As in most other races in North America, you want to have a good stalking trip or outright on the lead with a solid pace scenario.
I think the difficult thing about those sort of one-run closers, those sustained bids, is that it's just so darn difficult to maintain that long bid at Belmont Park. We all know how wide those turns are. And, you know, you go through the years over the past 10 years or so, sure, there's the anomaly, there's the creators of the world, you know, the horses coming from way out of it that can sustain that bid. But more often than not, you're going to get a run from a horse like Orb, who, you know what, he puts in that big bid. It looks like he's just going to roll on, and he flattens out. I think that's the danger in a race like this of taking a horse that's going to be coming from way out of it, that's completely void of early speed. This race here, I don't know how many horses are entirely void of early speed, but it would just be something I would factor into your handicapping.
I think you'd agree with me that, again, no one is really hurt or helped by the post position draw on this year's Belmont Stakes. So let's try to lay out a possible pace situation for the folks at home. It does appear that the number 1 Jovia, who is stretching out significantly in distance while stepping up significantly in class, is going to be the controlling speed, especially after breaking from post position 1.
I suppose if you really wanted to try to figure out winners and losers, in my opinion, Jovi is a winner in this spot. Your speed nearest the rail and the horses drawn just to your outside are relatively void of speed early on, or at least speed that you possess. I think there's one direction for Jovia to go. You make the front, and at that point, really, it just comes down to how much pressure is he going to take? Is he going to be able to throttle it back and get a 48 and change, almost 49 half mile? If that's the case, look, Jovi is the kind of horse that may fit that sort of mold of, you know what, if you're not sold on the heavy favorites in here, you don't really love any of the more high profile outfits, Jovia could potentially be that sort of horse that if he gets out there and they just let him go, he could get brave.
Mark Casse has to be absolutely thrilled with post position 9 for War of Will. We know he has wonderful tactical speed. That is, he can get himself into the race. And if he settles second off of Jovia, we might see a similar situation to what we saw at the fairgrounds earlier this year, where this horse was just cruising on the outside, waiting for the jock to push the button, and then taking command when the real racing begins. A good trip seems extremely likely for the Preakness winner.
The only other horse that I could see potentially sort of wedging himself in there between War of Will and a horse like Jovia might be Intrepid Heart if he breaks a little bit more alertly, because he's a horse that has, in the past at least, shown the ability to be a little bit closer to the pace. But I agree with you. Look, War of Will is going to have arguably the best trip in this race. He's going to be sitting perched 2-3 wide going into that first turn down the backside. You know that he has the ability to go on and run big races. We saw that in the Preakness. We saw that in all of his runs down in Louisiana. If you like this horse coming into the draw, there's no reason not to like him now. And I have to be honest, it might be one of those instances where it seems like everyone and their brother is gravitating toward Tacitus. maybe this is the time where the pendulum has swung too far one way. Maybe War of Will's getting a little bit of disrespect at this point.
Let's talk about the Wood Memorial winner and morning line favorite Tacitus. I would argue that if any one jockey in this race has a decision to make in the opening quarter to three furlongs in the race, it might have to be Jose Ortiz on Tacitus. Tacitus seems more like a mid-pack late runner. There doesn't appear to be a ton of speed in this race, and he draws outside of War of Will. Do you see Jose sort of being at least aggressive, trying to shadow War of Will, figuring, well, that's the horse to beat. I don't want to let him get too far away? Or do you think he just lets Tacitus relax, get into his rhythm, and let the race unfold as it is?
I think the best thing for a horse like Tacitus is that this pace doesn't seem that fast. And yes, he has been a horse that traditionally has come from a little bit farther out of it. I don't think he can help but be a little bit closer to the pace this time around. So the way that everything goes, obviously you hope he breaks alertly and everything is fine there. But I would imagine there's a situation where War of Will goes and Jose just slots right over and follows War of Will. I don't know that you want to be any wider than you absolutely have to be, but I think it's just basically one of those things. You follow War of Will. When War of Will makes his move, you make your move at the same time. And at that point, you just roll the dice and hope that you're better than War of Will.
You mentioned Intrepid Heart as perhaps a stalker that could either be sitting in second or sitting in third. That is with an alert break. He will be getting blinkers on for the Belmont Stakes after stumbling at the start of his most recent effort, the Peter Pan. You look at sort of the rest of this field and you see mid-pack to closers just about everywhere. Horses like Everfast and Master Fencer and Bourbon War and Spin-Off and Sir Winston. These are horses that like to sit 6 to 8 lengths off the lead. Perhaps a horse like Tax could be a little bit closer if the pace is not fast up front.
Yeah, the only other one I would throw out there that maybe I even was guilty of overlooking a little bit from an early standpoint, it could be Spin-Off, because Spin-Off, I don't think you want to use the Kentucky Derby as any sort of a barometer for his early ability. You go back to some of his runs prior, he was much closer to the pace. So I suppose there's a scenario where he is much more into it. He's a horse that I'm a little bit concerned about the distance with. You brought up Tax, though. Tax is that kind of horse that I think is probably going to get overlooked in here because he's been defeated by a horse like Tacitus in the past, but it feels like he'll run all day. I don't know that he is the most talented horse in this race, but his tactical ability, I think he might be able to kind of tuck into the pocket trip. And if it just turns into a stamina fest like it normally does, maybe Tax is another one at a big price that's interesting.
10 entered this year's Belmont Stakes at a mile and a half. $1.5 million is the purse. Approximate post time for race number 11 at Belmont on Saturday is 6:48 Eastern. Tacitus, the 9 to 5 morning line favorite. War of Will, the Preakness winner, 2-1 second choice. Master Fencer is 8-1. Third choice on the morning line. Stay tuned to DRFTV all week long for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival coverage. We already have all of the stakes races for Thursday and Friday's card up, and we've got that huge Belmont Stakes Saturday still to come. So stay tuned to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel.